You finally lie down on the couch on a Sunday afternoon, trying to relax. Immediately, a nagging voice in your head whispers that you should be productive. That voice crushes your chest with guilt, stinging your mind with anxiety. But this toxic feeling is an entirely modern, unnatural invention that makes no biological sense. For over 95% of human history, doing absolutely nothing wasn't a character flaw. It was the ultimate, highly prized goal of everyday survival. Let's look at your modern life. You exhaust yourself in a glowing screen box for 40 hours a week, burning your mental energy until you feel entirely hollow. When the weekend finally arrives, your exhausted body begs for stillness. But your modern brain punishes you, flooding your system with stress hormones the moment you stop moving. You feel like your body is broken. You feel lazy. But the truth is, your body isn't broken at all. It is simply remembering a very different world. You are experiencing a massive evolutionary mismatch. Your brain is a 300,000-year-old survival engine trapped in a hyperconnected, relentlessly industrialized modern society that demands constant motion. To this ancient biological machine inside your skull, energy is the most precious, scarce resource on Earth. Burning calories without a clear survival reason is incredibly dangerous. Today, society tells you that resting is a waste of time. But to your ancient DNA, resting means you have successfully won the brutal daily game of survival. Why do we feel so guilty, then? Because the Industrial Revolution fundamentally reprogrammed how we view human worth, turning your biological need into a shameful moral failure. Before factories and clock punching, our ancestors lived in what anthropologists call the original Affluent Society, and their daily schedule would absolutely shock your modern boss and HR department. Forget the myth of the miserable, starving cavemen fighting for scraps. Archaeological evidence reveals a shockingly relaxed lifestyle that prioritized leisure above endless, mindless accumulation of wealth. To cure this modern resting guilt, we must reconstruct the lost rhythm of our ancestors. We need to leave the artificial lights and travel back into deep time. Close your eyes and imagine stepping out onto the warm, golden African savanna, roughly 50,000 years ago. The air is crisp. The prehistoric morning is quiet. There are no alarms, no commutes, and no endless to-do lists. You wake up only when your body decides it is fully rested and ready to move. There is no frantic rush to catch a train. You stretch your thin limbs, breathe in the cool air, and join your small, tightly knit tribe. Your morning commute is a slow, observant walk through the whispering grass. You are hunting and gathering, but it doesn't feel like forced labor. You casually pluck ripe berries and dig up starchy roots. Your body is moving, but your mind is completely free from agonizing stress and deadlines. Sometimes you track an animal. It requires intense, explosive bursts of physical energy, sending your heart racing. But this intense effort is surprisingly short-lived. Once the hunt is successful or the baskets are full, the workday instantly stops. There is no manager demanding you look busy until 5 o'clock. In the 1960s, anthropologist Richard Borshay-Lee embedded himself with the Jew/Hoansi Bushmen to study exactly how much time hunter-gatherers actually spent working. His groundbreaking research completely shattered modern assumptions. He discovered that their average workweek to secure enough calories was merely 15 to 20 hours. That is barely 2 or 3 hours of active labor a day. By early afternoon, your entire survival checklist for the day is completely finished. So what exactly do you do with the remaining hours of daylight? You do the very things your modern brain is desperately starving for. You sit in the shade, crafting tools, singing songs, and playfully gossiping with your tribe. Social bonding is your primary, most crucial daily activity. Or, brilliantly, you simply do nothing at all. You take long, unapologetic naps in the afternoon breeze. Your body demands rest to conserve precious calories. In this world, relaxing is a profound biological victory. It means you are safe, you are fed, and your tribe is successfully surviving the wild. For 300,000 years, your brain evolved to deeply crave this exact rhythm. Short bursts of necessary effort, followed by massive amounts of leisure. You didn't work to build endless wealth or climb a non-existent corporate ladder. You worked just enough to live, and then you fiercely protected your peace. This ancient, beautiful balance is permanently hardwired into your DNA. But soon, a catastrophic invention will completely hijack this natural rhythm, creating modern misery. The Industrial Revolution violently shattered your ancestral rhythm. Suddenly, giant ticking clocks and noisy factories swallowed your time, demanding endless labor to build artificial wealth. Almost overnight, society brainwashed you into believing that resting was a shameful sin. Your worth was suddenly measured entirely by how much you could constantly produce. This directly contradicts history. In 1972, anthropologist Marshall Sahlins famously described your hunter-gatherer ancestors as the original Affluent Society, turning modern economics completely upside down. Sahlins argued that your ancestors were incredibly wealthy, not because they violently hoarded possessions, but because they simply desired very little, easily fulfilling their basic needs. Your ancient brain evolved to perfectly match this affluent environment. It expects a clear, achievable daily goal, followed by deep, guilt-free physical and mental recovery. Now, pull yourself back into your cold modern office. The contrast between your biological hardware and this artificial environment is violently jarring and deeply exhausting. You sit trapped under harsh fluorescent lights, staring blankly at a digital checklist of infinite tasks that will simply never, ever be truly finished. Think about it. When a prehistoric hunter finally caught a large animal, the work immediately stopped. The entire tribe rested, ate, and celebrated their undeniable victory. But modern corporate work has absolutely no finish line. Answering one urgent email only magically spawns 3 more, trapping you in a suffocating, endless loop. Because your work never officially ends, your primitive survival engine becomes deeply confused. It constantly scans your environment, frantically searching for a clear stopping point. So when you finally collapse on the couch, your brain aggressively rebels. It sees the endless invisible to-do list hovering over you like a predator. It falsely assumes you are failing to survive. To force you back into action, it punishes your body, flooding your chest with a stinging, burning guilt. This toxic resting guilt is simply an ancient survival alarm, ringing desperately in an artificial world that stubbornly refuses to ever let you power down. You are not lazy, and you are not broken. You are literally fighting 300,000 years of evolutionary programming every single day of your life. Your tired body is desperately begging for that lost prehistoric pause. It is craving the beautiful, guilt-free emptiness that kept your ancestors alive and sane. Today, modern society isolates you, forcing you to carry the entire heavy burden of survival completely on your own, draining your mental batteries. You feel physically crushed under the suffocating weight of rent, endless career goals, and bills, completely convinced that your daily burnout is a shameful personal failure. But for your ancient ancestors, surviving alone was a literal death sentence. No single human ever carried the agonizing weight of survival by themselves. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar discovered a fascinating biological limit baked into our DNA. Our brains are hardwired to maintain stable relationships with roughly 150 people. This is famously known as Dunbar's number. 150 people was the exact maximum size of an ancient, tightly knit hunter-gatherer extended tribe. Within this ancient network of 150 brains, the crushing physical and mental load of daily survival was perfectly and evenly distributed. If you were sick, injured, or simply completely exhausted, the tribe immediately absorbed your slack. You were allowed to rest without facing any toxic judgment. There was absolutely no prehistoric hustle culture. Hyper-individualism and selfish hoarding would quickly destroy the delicate, cooperative survival fabric of the entire tribal group. Instead, your primitive brain evolved to release massive, soothing doses of oxytocin and dopamine whenever you shared resources, gossiped, and rested safely with your community. You spent countless hours grooming, chatting, and deeply bonding around the campfire, actively healing each other's exhausted nervous systems after a brief morning hunt. Now look at your reality. You are shoved into a tiny modern apartment, staring blankly at glowing screens, entirely cut off from your ancestral safety net. The industrialized modern world brutally fractured the tribe, isolating you in a cold concrete box to fight a terrifying survival battle completely naked and alone. When you experience severe modern burnout, your brain isn't just tired of answering emails. Deep down in its ancient core, it is screaming in terror. Your amygdala is panicking because, biologically speaking, being totally exhausted and socially isolated means you are about to be swallowed alive by the wilderness. Your modern resting guilt is heavily compounded by this deep ancestral loneliness. You are literally carrying the agonizing weight of 150 people. Because your ancient brain is absolutely terrified of this unnatural isolation, it desperately seeks out a replacement tribe, usually at the exact moment you need sleep. Social media perfectly exploits this deep evolutionary vulnerability. It feeds your primitive survival engine a massive, endless simulation of a tribe, hijacking your dopamine system entirely. You think you are resting while scrolling, but biologically you are not. Your brain is aggressively working, processing the emotional drama of thousands of phantom strangers. Remember Dunbar's number? Your hardware was designed for 150 stable connections. Tonight, you just injected the chaotic stress of 5,000 people. This invisible mental labor aggressively drains your precious calorie reserves, leaving you profoundly exhausted, yet strangely unable to actually fall asleep. Your system crashes. This is the ultimate tragic paradox of the modern worker. We have entirely eliminated the physical dangers of the prehistoric savanna, but we replace them entirely with invisible psychological predators. Your inbox, your mortgage, and societal expectations trigger the exact same biological panic response as a hungry saber-toothed cat in the dark. Understanding this evolutionary mismatch is your ultimate weapon. You can finally stop blaming yourself for failing to thrive in a system designed against your core biology. You can consciously choose to recreate the prehistoric pause, disconnect the glowing screens, rebuild your physical tribe, and aggressively protect your sacred hours of absolute nothingness. Next time that crushing wave of guilt hits you on a quiet Sunday afternoon, gently remind your panicked brain that you are already perfectly, biologically victorious. Your ancestors survived brutal ice ages and massive predators by mastering the profound art of doing absolutely nothing when nothing was strictly required to be done. So, the next time you finally lie down on the couch on a Sunday afternoon, trying to relax, don't let that artificial, unnatural guilt crush you. Smile back at that ancient, terrified survival engine inside your skull, and gently whisper to it that the hunt is over and the tribe is safe. Because despite what the industrialized world desperately wants you to believe, your body isn't fundamentally broken or lazy. It is simply and beautifully remembering its roots. For 95% of human history, doing absolutely nothing wasn't a failure. It was the entire point. Now finally, give yourself permission to just stop. As you finally allow yourself to rest, another hidden layer of modern exhaustion reveals itself. It's not just the hours you work, it's the status anxiety. In your modern office, every task is a desperate competition. You are forced to climb a ruthless corporate ladder, constantly terrified of falling behind your peers. Your ancient amygdala interprets a low-performance review or a missed promotion as a literal threat to your survival, flooding your veins with toxic cortisol. But if we travel back to the prehistoric savanna, this exhausting, perpetual rat race to prove your individual worth completely disappears from daily human life. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in fiercely egalitarian societies. There were absolutely no bosses, no CEOs, and zero rigid social hierarchies. Anthropologist Richard Lee documented a brilliant psychological tool used by the Jew/Hoansi people to actively prevent the exact kind of status stress that destroys you today. It is a fascinating cultural practice known as insulting the meat, and it was designed specifically to crush human arrogance before it could even form. Imagine a skilled ancient hunter bringing down a massive, life-saving animal. In our modern world, we would shower him with relentless praise and massive bonuses. But the ancient tribe did the exact opposite. They would actively mock his success, complaining loudly that the meat was too skinny, tough, or completely worthless. The hunter was expected to humbly agree, downplaying his own massive achievement. He was never allowed to elevate himself above the rest of the tribe. Why? Because an arrogant hunter might eventually believe he was better than others, creating a hierarchy that would violently fracture the tribe's delicate, cooperative peace. By ruthlessly enforcing humility, they completely eliminated the exhausting pressure of social climbing. You never had to constantly perform to earn your warmth by the fire. Your survival value was simply an unconditional birthright. Your brain evolved to expect this profound psychological safety within the tight circle of your small community. But today, that unconditional safety net is entirely gone. You are forced to desperately justify your right to survive every single day through endless productivity. This unnatural, relentless status anxiety secretly burns through the precious mental energy your primitive brain is so desperately trying to conserve by making you feel tired. To heal this exhausting modern damage, your body desperately needs to return to the most profound, original psychological therapy room ever invented, the prehistoric campfire. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner analyzed exactly how hunter-gatherers spent their time around the fire. Her findings completely changed how we understand human relaxation. She found that during the harsh, practical daylight hours, conversations were overwhelmingly focused on economics, stressful hunting strategies, and navigating complex tribal complaints and conflicts. But the moment the sun disappeared and the campfire was violently sparked to life, a profound biological and cultural shift completely transformed the entire group. Over 80% of their nighttime conversations shifted instantly to singing, spirituality, and epic storytelling. The fire physically created a completely safe space for imagination. For your exhausted prehistoric brain, this wasn't just entertainment. This shared imagination actively down-regulated the terrified amygdala, effectively massaging the tribe's battered nervous systems back together. Look at what you have replaced the campfire with. We stare completely alone at blinding, cold flat screens, passively consuming endless streams of artificial panic. This glowing plastic rectangle doesn't heal your exhausted nervous system at all. It actively drains it, keeping your ancient threat detection radar violently locked in the on position. You are not fundamentally broken. You are just a profoundly tired hunter-gatherer who has completely lost their safe, warm campfire and their tightly knit, protective tribe. To stop this agonizing modern burnout, you have to ruthlessly protect your time. You must consciously recreate the boundaries that nature once built for you organically. When the workday is over, let it be entirely over. Unplug the artificial screens that trick your terrified amygdala into believing the hunt is still happening. Actively rebuild your lost tribe. Spend time physically sitting with a small, close-knit group of people where you do not have to perform or prove anything. Next time that crushing wave of guilt hits you on a quiet Sunday afternoon, gently remind your panicked brain that you are already perfectly, biologically victorious. Because despite what the industrialized world desperately wants you to believe, your body isn't fundamentally broken or lazy. It is simply and beautifully remembering its roots. For 95% of human history, doing absolutely nothing wasn't a failure. It was the entire point. Now finally, give yourself permission to just stop. Of course, you cannot simply abandon civilization tomorrow, quit your job, or move into a cave. But you can consciously hack your daily modern environment. By consciously designing your schedule around your 300,000-year-old biological blueprint, you can stop the stinging, burning exhaustion before it ever crushes your nervous system. Here is your modern Paleolithic survival guide. Rule number 1. Mimic the hunting rhythm. Work in short, highly focused bursts, and then completely disconnect without compromise. Never allow your workday to bleed into your evening. When your shift ends, firmly close the laptop. Half working while trying to rest tortures your brain. Your biological survival engine loves binary clarity. By giving it a hard finish line, your cortisol immediately drops, allowing genuine physical restoration to finally begin. Rule number 2. Actively reclaim analog boredom. Stop stuffing every single quiet moment with addictive digital stimuli that secretly drain your limited mental energy batteries. Let your mind wander freely without a screen. Stare at the clouds, walk in nature, or simply stare at a blank wall without feeling suffocated. This unfocused emptiness activates your default mode network, the exact biological mechanism your ancestors used to process emotions, heal anxiety, and deeply restore internal calm. Rule number 3. Fiercely protect your real-world tribe. Prioritize face-to-face physical presence with small, trusted groups over thousands of exhausting digital phantom connections. Simply sitting together, sharing warm food without judgment, physically tells your ancient threat radar that you are entirely protected from the darkness of the wilderness. When you align your daily rhythm with this ancient evolutionary blueprint, the heavy, crushing guilt of modern life dissolves. You finally make peace with your DNA. So rest deeply. Take your naps without apology. Lie on your couch without that nagging, burning anxiety constantly screaming that you should be doing something productive. Never forget, your body is a brilliantly engineered, ancient survival masterpiece. It survived ice ages, scarcity, and darkness by deeply cherishing the sacred art of stillness. Whenever modern society makes you feel guilty for simply resting your weary bones, listen tightly to your ancient DNA. Your body isn't broken, it's remembering. Thank you for exploring our evolutionary story. Subscribe to honor your ancient origins, and finally give yourself permission to enjoy your guilt-free rest.